Imagine for a moment that the very thing that once made you special, your intelligence, has become the cage you can't escape. Think about it. What if the reason you feel so lost, so disconnected, isn't because you're failing, but because you've been following a rulebook that no longer applies? What if the identity you built as the smart one is now the very thing keeping you from growing, from connecting, from truly living? Today, we'll explore a hidden truth, one that Carl Jung understood deeply, about how the labels we cling to can become the walls that trap us. By the end of this journey, you'll see why so many former gifted kids struggle as adults, and more importantly, you'll discover how to break free. The final revelation. You weren't meant to live in the shadow of who you used to be. Carl Jung, the pioneering psychologist, taught us that the parts of ourselves we ignore or deny don't disappear. They grow stronger in the dark. And for the once smart kid, that repressed part isn't some hidden darkness. It's the ordinary, struggling, beautifully human self you've been running from. You see, when your entire identity is built on being the smart one, you don't just value intelligence, you fear anything that threatens it. Failure isn't just failure, it's an existential crisis. Not knowing isn't just ignorance, it's a betrayal of who you're supposed to be. Jung called this the persona, the mask we wear to meet the world. But when the mask becomes your only face, you forget what's underneath. Think back. When you were young, being smart wasn't just a trait, it was your superpower. Teachers praised you, parents beamed, and classmates looked up to you. You learned a dangerous lesson. Your worth was tied to how effortlessly you succeeded. Struggling wasn't part of the story, so what happened when life stopped being easy? When you faced challenges that couldn't be solved in a single glance? You didn't see it as growth. You saw it as proof that maybe, just maybe, you weren't so smart after all. And so you did the only thing that made sense. You retreated. You avoided risks, stuck to what you knew, and watched as others, less gifted but more daring, surpassed you. Here's the cruel irony. Intelligence isn't the problem. The problem is the story you've been telling yourself, that if you're smart, life should be easy. That if you're truly gifted, you shouldn't have to try. Jung warned us, when we worship one part of ourselves, we exile the rest. And the exiled parts don't vanish, they fester. They show up as procrastination, as self-sabotage, as that nagging feeling that you're wasting your potential. But what if your potential was never about being perfect? What if it was about being whole? This is where Jung's wisdom becomes your lifeline. The way out isn't doubling down on being smart. It's reclaiming the parts of yourself you've abandoned. The part that fails, the part that doesn't know, the part that needs help. Because here's the truth. Real growth begins where your identity ends. The moment you stop seeing struggle as a threat and start seeing it as the path, that's the moment you'll stop feeling lost. That's the moment you'll finally come home to yourself. Let's pause and ask the real question. Why does this happen? Why do so many smart kids grow into adults who feel like imposters, like spectators in their own lives? The answer lies in a silent bargain you made as a child, one you didn't even realize you were signing. You traded curiosity for validation, exploration for approval. And now, years later, you're left with a hollow crown, the title of smart, but none of the joy. Think about how you learned. For most kids, mistakes are normal, they're expected. But for you, mistakes were emergencies. Every time you struggled, someone swooped in to reassure you, you're too smart for this. Well-meaning, but deadly. Because what they were really saying was, you shouldn't be here. So you learned to avoid the struggle, to hide the confusion. You mastered the art of seeming capable, seeming unfazed, seeming like you had it all figured out. But beneath that surface, something was rotting. Your tolerance for being a beginner. Jung called this the shadow, the parts of ourselves we disown because they don't fit the image we've created. And for you, the shadow isn't some dark, monstrous thing. It's something far more ordinary, far more terrifying. It's the part of you that's average, the part that needs time, the part that asks dumb questions, the part that fails. You've spent years running from it, but here's the truth you've been avoiding. You can't outrun yourself. Consider how this plays out in your daily life. You don't start projects unless you're sure you'll excel. You don't speak unless you're certain you're right. You don't take risks unless the outcome is guaranteed. And so, bit by bit, you shrink your world to the size of your comfort zone. Meanwhile, the people you once outpaced, the ones who weren't afraid to look foolish, are the ones moving ahead. Not because they're smarter, but because they're free. Free to try, free to fail, free to learn. This is the tragedy of the gifted child. You were so busy protecting your identity that you forgot to build a life. But it's not too late. Jung's greatest insight was that the shadow isn't your enemy, it's your guide. The very things you've been running from, the uncertainty, the clumsiness, the not knowing, are the keys to your rebirth. Because here's the secret. Intelligence isn't about never failing. It's about failing well. It's about letting the struggle transform you. So let me ask you, what would happen if, just for today, you allowed yourself to be bad at something? If you stepped into the discomfort instead of fleeing it? That's where the magic happens. That's where you'll find the version of yourself you've been missing, the one who doesn't need to be perfect to be worthy, the one who's finally, blessedly, free. Now, let's talk about the loneliness. Because it's one thing to feel stuck in your own growth. It's another to feel utterly alone in it. And this is where the cost of being the smart one cuts deepest. You see, connection isn't built on brilliance. It's built on shared vulnerability. The inside jokes that come from group projects gone wrong. The bonding over mutual confusion in a new hobby. The friendships forged in the messy, unpolished moments of being human. But when you're trapped in your identity, you opt out of those moments. You don't join the club because you might look inexperienced. You don't ask for help because you're supposed to already know. You don't laugh at your mistakes because you're not supposed to make any. And so, without realizing it, you become a ghost in your own life, present but not participating, watching but not belonging. Jung understood this isolation better than anyone. He wrote, "Loneliness does not come from having no people around you, but from being unable to communicate the things that seem important to you. And what's more important to you than the fear that you're not living up to your own potential? But here's the catch. You can't communicate that fear because it would shatter the image you've worked so hard to maintain. So you stay silent, and the loneliness grows. Let's name the elephant in the room. You're exhausted. Not because life is objectively hard, but because you're performing. Every social interaction is a calculation, analyzing what to say, how to seem, whether you're being impressive enough. You've convinced yourself that if you just think hard enough, you can outsmart the awkwardness of being human. But you can't. And the more you try, the more you feel like an alien observing social rituals from behind glass. This is the curse of cognitive empathy, the ability to understand emotions without feeling them. You can read a room, anticipate needs, even charm people, but it's a mental marathon, not a natural flow. And at the end of the night, you're left wondering why everyone else seems to walk away, energized while you're drained. The answer? They weren't performing. They were just being. But there's hope. Jung's concept of individuation isn't about becoming some idealized version of yourself. It's about becoming real. And the first step is admitting this simple truth. You're tired of the act, tired of pretending you have it all figured out, tired of equating being liked with being impressive. What if you let the mask crack? What if you dare to say, "I don't know," or "I messed up," or "This is harder than I thought"? That's when the magic happens. That's when people see you, not the persona, but the person. And that's when you'll finally feel less alone. Jung wrote, "I am not what happened to me. I am what I choose to become." And that's your invitation now, to choose curiosity over certainty, to choose connection over performance, to choose growth over protection. Because the world doesn't need another perfect smart kid. It needs the real you, the one who's been hiding all this time, waiting to be found. So take a breath. The journey ahead isn't about fixing yourself, it's about meeting yourself. And trust me, you're worth the introduction.